The Fed Upward Podcast, a place for federal employees and friends of feds to find strategies and tactics to navigate everyday problems.
What we're trying to do at Northeastern Arlington is to identify some smaller kind of taster offerings, for example. So a taster online course on AI applications, for example.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
From launch pads
We have liftoff
to research labs, civilian Fed life leads to many places, all covered by WAEPA. WAEPA offers fully portable group term life insurance for current and former civilian Feds. This coverage answers whatever life brings, with benefits that follow wherever service calls. WAEPA. For Feds, by Feds.
Hi, folks. This is Love Rutledge, host of the Fed Upward podcast, with a return guest on the show, Ms. Jamie Jones Miller. She has a deep background in federal service, and she is here in her somewhat new capacity as a leader for Northeastern University, which has opened a campus in Arlington, Virginia, and is supporting federal employees in new and dynamic ways. So she is here today to talk to us about what that means. Jamie, thanks for being on the show again.
Thank you for having me back on, Love. It feels like we're just continuing a conversation that we've been having for the past 3 or 4 years. And I said this the last time, I think, but I'm just a long time listener and am so appreciative of the content and the information that you put out, but also the dialogue that you generate in this space at a very relevant time. So thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you. For those who don't know you well, let's run through your background because it is super interesting. And I want folks to know how you have served because you've done so in a variety of capacities.
Thank you for asking that. I did something crazy about 3 years ago and left virtually the only career path I'd ever known and had ever dreamed of having to go into academia. So you mentioned I'm the inaugural dean and CEO of Northeastern University's campus in Arlington, Virginia. We're located in Roslyn, graduate campus focused on the intersection of technology and policy and security. We also have a research enterprise footprint here in the kind of security space. But before that, I worked on Capitol Hill for about 13 years, serving 2 members of Congress, both on the House Armed Services Committee, both from the Commonwealth of Virginia, both with very heavy federal facility footprint, federal employee, federal contractor footprints. And then subsequently, I went to the Department of Defense to serve as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for House Affairs, and then the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Legislative Affairs, being that liaison between the Secretary and senior leadership at the department and Congress, and trying to negotiate, the annual funding legislation and policy priorities. And then now being in academia, I get to see this other lens of how industry and government and policy kind of all intersect. And now I can contribute to building the workforce that is going to solve some of these really exquisite problem sets that we know government and industry are facing today. So it's a really interesting and neat pivot because I come from a military family and my father was in the Air Force and my mom retired from the Department of Defense. So I was kind of built for that, but now I get to view it from preparing the future generation of leaders. And that's been a really exciting new opportunity for me.
Well, you're definitely in this space at a dynamic time. Those of us in the federal workforce are looking for ways to make sure we remain relevant, that we have the right skills to endure what may be coming in reductions in force or changes, pivots in strategy and tactics that the government is using under the new administration. So tell us about the kinds of programs you have, what kind of things are available for folks who might be looking to upskill or reskill.
Yeah. And I appreciate the framing that you just offered there. And I want to first focus on the upskilling and reskilling and say that this is something that when I left government, I knew I had to do. it didn't matter what step I was going to take next, whether I wanted to go into industry or to academia or whatever it might be. I knew I have to take an inventory of my resume, my skill set, and figure out where the gaps are. And I'll be very honest with you, I know how aircraft carriers are built and how we launch and recover aircraft. Understanding cloud computing or quantum computing or how a data center functions or the backbone of artificial intelligence and maybe how to apply it day to day, not within my skill set, but I knew that those are all things that I was going to need to know to be competitive. So that's kind of where I would start as anyone in thinking about a transition or thinking about what their next professional move might be. Do that inventory. What's in your toolbox? What skills do you need to add? And that's the approach that we've taken at Northeastern here in Arlington. What are some of the programs? And when I say program, I mean a graduate degree program where you receive a degree at the end of that 12, 18, 24-month time frame, or graduate certificate that might be, 4 courses, and it might take you maybe 8 or 10 months or a year, for example, or maybe a short non-credentialed badge offering that is a shorter course over a shorter period of time. So we've really been able to kind of quickly customize and assemble a roster of offerings to meet the moment. And we have programs from our College of Engineering, like information systems, for example. We have programs from our College of Computer Science on computer science, and we're about to roll out a cybersecurity master's degree this fall. We have programs from our College of Social Sciences and the Humanities focused on public policy and public administration, and our College of Professional Studies that has project management and data analytics and is about to launch a program on security and intelligence studies. So bigger, longer term programs, also some certificates embedded in there. And then also this fall, we're going to be launching a certificate in AI applications and a few other program offerings in the AI applications space. But the through line through all of these programs is there's this combination between the technical edge and the practical application, and then also a little policy here and there. So if you go the public policy route, you're going to encounter AI. You're going to encounter a technology, a technical lens. And that's been really cool for me to see how it's embedded throughout all of our program offerings. And then to see the university say, you know what, it's time, let's offer a master's of cybersecurity and an on-ramp for folks who don't have a technical bachelor's degree. Or, you know what, let's do a bite-sized graduate certificate in AI applications, again, for someone that maybe doesn't have the technical expertise. So I started by saying this is something that I did. I took my own inventory and put my money where my mouth is. I've completed 3 non-credential badge programs at Northeastern in AI and data because that was a huge deficiency for me.
Well, I think that's a huge deficiency for a lot of us, myself included. And for folks who may have been in government for a long time, you know, we weren't required to have that knowledge base as we got promoted. And now we're in this deficit situation where we're expected to lead people doing that kind of work and using tools that we might not understand. So institutions like Northeastern can help us fill that knowledge gap. And I know, Jamie, you have an event coming up soon that is specifically geared toward federal employees and members of the military and their spouses. So tell us about that and how people can get signed up.
Yes, we're very excited to open our doors and have an open house for the kind of federal community, our military connected community on April the 2nd, a Thursday from 4:30 to 7 p.m. at our campus in Roslyn. And then for those who can't make it on the afternoon on a work day, we also have an open house on April the 26th, which is a Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So we'd welcome you to visit our website. It's arlington.northeastern.edu to learn more about the open houses and to register for one or both of those events.
ClearanceJobs, the leading digital network for cleared professionals, has launched fedwork.net, connecting federal employees with news, insights, and community. The public forum serves as an extension of the ClearanceJobs career community, empowering feds to stay connected and informed. Visit fedwork.net to search and start discussions, and create a free profile at clearancejobs.com to find your next cleared role.
Thanks for that, Jamie. Are there any other exciting events or new offerings that Northeastern has in store for the federal employee community that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure you highlight?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this question because I know that the higher education community across the National Capital Region is trying to be very thoughtful about how we support folks who are in transition. This may not be the right time for someone to say, you know what, I'm going to commit to a full-on master's program, right? Completely acknowledge many people are still in the processing phase of what's next, or they may be, in a role they've held for a couple of years and are thinking about, okay, is now the right time to pivot? Given the transition in the workforce, I don't know. So, in talking to other colleagues in the higher education community, we're very aware and want to be sensitive that the time may not be right to press the button on a very full commitment. So what we're trying to do at Northeastern Arlington is to identify some smaller kind of taster offerings, for example. So a taster online course on AI applications, for example, or a smaller one-day event for executives, C-suite level folks, or senior folks in industry, for example, or in a government role, to come in and meet with an expert in the AI governance space. And so we want to offer a smaller kind of bite-sized opportunities. And then I think the third thing we're working on is what kind of partnerships can we have with organizations who are serving our federal workforce and contractor community? And how do we maybe serve as a bridge or a connector between an organization like the Northern Virginia Technology Council, for example, and the many Northeastern alumni who happen to be in the public sector, for example. So we're thinking about convenings and opportunities to be a bridge and bring people together. So there are organic events, connections, relationships that manifest themselves from those opportunities. So a lot of those are kind of in flight right now, and I'm excited about that. I think that is a unique opportunity to be a convener in the region. And last thing I'll say, we are kind of starting from within and serving our employer partners, and are hosting a job fair for not just Northeastern students, but a consortium of students, or consortium of universities in the DC area in a couple weeks, to bring employers to campus and expose them to the talent that we have, and many of whom are full-time, professionals during the day and going to school at night. So that's the other side, is like, not just how are we supporting the workforce, but how are we also serving the employers and getting them the talent that they need.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for mentioning contractors as well, because I was using terminology that was only, federal employees, spouses, military members. But our contractor community is so important in helping us face new challenges that internally we might not have the skill sets for. And also, with a lot of folks leaving government, we see fluidity and people moving back and forth between contractor roles and federal roles. And so we're all kind of part of the same team, even if we're wearing different uniforms. So want to make sure that we recognize that community as well. Jamie, thank you for everything you do to support federal employees in all of the different capacities that you have served. I appreciate what you do, and we'll have links in the show notes to the registration for the event that you mentioned. Thanks so much.
Thanks, love.
Thanks for listening, friends. If you liked what you heard today, I hope you'll subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend. To join my mailing list, head over to fedupwardcoaching.com/podcast. Talk soon.